Jesus didn't have a problem with people that's in the streets. He had a problem with religious people.
How can I help anybody when I was not even able to help my own son?
I would never do that. And I became that in a matter of minutes when they took my pain pills away.
And I said, I'm not where I want to be, but thank God I'm not what I used to be.
This is Faith in Your Recovery. I am Randy Davis. Welcome to the battle. Welcome to this episode of Faith in Your Recovery, coming to you from East Central Indiana. Our guest today, coming to us from Pittsburgh, PA, I believe it is. Yeah, is Chaz Smith, a.k.a. Colicchie. And we're thrilled to have him to get to hear his story. But I want to explain a little something to you as a forward here. You see the hat I have on? Never worn this in one of our episodes before, but today's the right time. Colicchie is like our fourth, I believe he's number 4 that we've been able to interview that's a participant in the genre, the Christian hip-hop and everything that goes with that. And this hat that I have on, you recognize that gentleman on there? That's Goober from Andy of Mayberry and everything that goes on down there in North Carolina. My wife stuck me with that nickname back some 50 years ago when I was working in a service station. I had the layered look to keep warm, and I probably looked a lot like Goober. She thought I was one, but she stuck with me for 52 plus years, so we're thankful. So, that name stuck with my nieces and nephews, call me Uncle Goober, and it went from there to my grandchildren who referred to me as Papa Goober. Well, on today's program, I just want to fit in the genre. Welcome. It's nice to meet you. I'm Papa G. So, we're going to hit everything we can hit. We're going to stay in that realm of all things recovery, and we're excited to hear from Colicchie. Colicchie, I want to start with a question. Define for us, describe for us what your name means. What is it symbolic of? I've looked it up for my own benefit, but I'm sure there's some folks who don't know. I wouldn't have without that. So let's begin right there, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Colicchie, when I was younger, like when I was like 23 and I was trying to find like a rap name, a stage name, whatever you're going to say, I thought of everything that I possibly could, and nothing really like made sense. And then one day I was actually with some friends actually on vacation, sitting on a beach, and it just came to me. Colicchie is actually my grandmother's maiden name. And it's not really a name that, that she said a lot, because obviously she was married and everything. But I just thought of it one day, and I just liked how it sounded, and I just went with it, fast forward 15, 20 years later, and the name just has a lot of meaning to me now, looking back. Like, my grandmother was, like, hands down the most selfless person that I've ever met in my entire life. And in picking it, I just liked how it sounded. But like now today, it has a lot more meaning for the fact that that's kind of like what I try to do, even with my music, is just carry like a positive message. And and the fact that I have her name, is just incredible to me.
Your grandparents played a big role in your early years, yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah. As I looked up the word Colicchie, I found the following, I don't know if we call them definitions, perhaps explanations: problem solver, peacemaker, healer, comfortable. Do those fit your style and the person you want to be and the work you want to do and your service to Christ?
Absolutely, yeah. I didn't know any of that, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was fun to find that, and I've read a little of the history of the Colicchie family for years. Back in, I want to say maybe the 20s or the 30s, they came out in New York, but I'm going to leave that to your genealogical searches, okay? And if you want to pursue that, great. Tell us about early life. What was it like? growing up, what kind of lives were lived before you? What kind of modeling was there? Yeah, help us out.
Yeah, I mean, like my life, even growing up, like I said, my grandparents played a huge part in raising me. My mother was a single mother, a single parent. I mean, my father, he was a heroin addict. So whenever I was real young, she basically left him one day. She like grabbed my sister and I basically like out of the crib, and we left the residence that we were staying at, and we never looked back. And I to this day I've never met him. We've never like kept in contact or anything like that. So we moved on the same street where my grandparents live, and like I said, my grandparents taught me about like morals and values, and taught me right from wrong and all that. But like, growing up, I was a good child, but I still just always felt different. And I feel like I say that all the time, but it's so true. I always felt just off, even like when I was around like my friends, I was always shy. I was always very like apprehensive and timid, fearful, all of them things. And I tried certain outlets like sports and all that, which like kind of helped. But really, like the main thing that helped me the most, at the age of like 12, 13 is when I found drugs. And, I was a very respectful kid, but in the same breath, once I started doing drugs, that's basically when my problems started to,
How were
be.
you introduced to the drugs? Was that peer pressure? What
I would say
took
the
place?
first time ever that I used was peer pressure. After that, it was strictly curiosity, trying to fill the void, trying to fill a spiritual void, trying to feel different, something to cover up the self hatred, something to cover up the guilt, the shame, the remorse, the regret for no apparent reason, just these uncomfortable feelings that I always had. So
So you
I
were like 12 years old when all of this hit. Is that pretty close?
It was. I mean, I started off with like weed, but my progression was very quickly. My progression with, quote unquote, you know, harmless drugs to, deadly drugs was only over the course of a couple years. So it was
So
pretty
we're
quick.
talking marijuana to heroin within a couple of years. So is
Pretty
that
much.
fair
Yeah, pretty
guesstimate?
much.
Yeah, yeah. Heavy user at all times, all you could get your hand on, or did you feel like you could control your use?
Absolutely. Like when I was in high school, I say my life was somewhat manageable because like I still went to school most days. I tried to go to school, and all that, but it wasn't really until I actually the week of graduating high school where addiction took this complete new like chokehold on me that I never experienced. Where every single waking moment of every single day was completely dedicated to feeding my addiction and doing whatever I have to do to get high. And then I would say from there it was like when I hit this new level of obsession or whatever you want to call it that I wasn't ready for.
So you were a functioning addict for a long time, and then as you got nearer to graduation, you lost that ability to even function, that it was
Yeah.
all about the drug.
Yeah, and I don't want to even really say I was functioning. I just want to say that it wasn't my absolutely everything. Like, I mean, I used every day of my life some type of chemical, whether it was alcohol, Adderall, ecstasy, cocaine. I mean, I used something. I mean, I got real big into Oxycontins in the early 2000s when I was still in high school, and then, that became my life. But as far as like the pure, like, degradation and dereliction and everything that addiction has to offer, like, yes, the summer of 2001 is that's when it really took a hold of me.
When were you when were you at your lowest in that stage of usage where it controlled your every mind, thought, action? What did life look like?
I mean, every moment that I used from that moment forward, I was pretty much always at my bottom, my spiritual bottom. I mean, every single day. Like I said, from like I used pretty hard from like 18 to 23, and then I was just constantly in and out of rehabs, jails, psych wards, detoxes, all of that. And then over the course of the last 18, 19 years, I was introduced to a 12-step fellowship, so I got clean several times, and I've actually had multiple years clean. This is actually my third time, with multiple years. I've had a year clean a couple times also. So it's like I always wanted to, I was so broken at such a young age, of like the age of like say 19, but I just could never stay stopped. And when I would stop for these moments, whether I was in rehab or jail or whatever, it was such a breath of fresh air, and it was such a like the fight is over, and I surrender and all that. But then I really never had the tools. I never really utilized the tools that were taught to me in order to stay on the straight path and in order to stay on my spiritual, path, because I would always run back to the familiar ways of my addiction when it came to using chemicals, because I don't know if it was fear. I don't know if it was, like low self-worth or whatever it is, but I just never really gave myself a chance. So it'd be just using. My life always involved using. But once I found that it was possible to like get like just even a single day clean and actually lose the desire to use and lose the obsession and all that, that's when I began to like start giving it like, time after time, these endeavors to try and get my life on track.
So, during that time, what were your grandparents' efforts toward you getting some help, toward you getting out of that addiction?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my family was always supportive. So, I mean, my grandparents would be there, would be there for me, but not really enable me like as much as my mother did, because my mother's a recovering alcoholic. So, I mean, she would have enabled me to death, basically. She would kick me out, but only for a couple of days at a time. My sister, I used with my sister, she's a recovering heroin addict. She now is 20 years clean. My mom now at this point, like, the year I graduated high school, my mother had 16 years sober in the other fellowship, and she actually relapsed that year. So, like, from that moment forward to, like, let's say 5 years ago, she was always slipping. And, like I said, even the beginning, for years, like, my house was this crack house, was this shooting gallery, this this very dirty, filthy residence where the constables were always there, the ambulance was always there. We always had people that were our friends that were living there. I mean, it would be nothing for a friend of mine to overdose in the living room, and the paramedics have to come and basically revive him like on the living room floor. That was just our life. That was normal. And my mother was just this very depressed alcoholic that would drink way too much, and then she would just sleep for days. So like she was there for me the best that she could be, so a lot of the times that I actually ended up getting clean and moving forward and putting the work in, my end consequence that made me do all this stuff was always spiritual. You know what I mean? Like my life would be flowing around like with the physical, as far as the going to jail and the overdosing and all that, but it came down to like something internally inside of me that I knew that I had to change. And then I would, get all this tangible evidence in my life of these people around me that were just as bad as I were, and I would see how they changed their lives. And we're talking about like street junkies that now have careers, that now bought houses, that got married. I started witnessing this thing time and time again. And I thought, like, if it was possible for them, then just maybe that, like, if I just do what they suggest and I follow their advice, then like maybe I can do that too.
What was the biggest lie you were telling yourself during that time frame?
That I wasn't worthy of being clean, that I wasn't worthy of a relationship with God, and just the fact that I can't do it. Even when I would have the evidence in my life that I've done it before, I just the negative, pessimistic thoughts that I would constantly, consistently tell myself. So that was hands down the biggest lie, and that kept me sick. Because even the times that I tried to get clean, and maybe I was even being successful for the moment, we still have them thoughts like it's just a matter of time before this all falls apart. So just why don't you just use now?
Yeah, yeah, that that all kind of fits and makes sense. You talked about one of the flickers of hope was seeing others find success in getting out of the addiction and raising themselves in life and all. Was there another flicker of hope during that time? How was it that you came into contact with this higher power, with Christ? How was it for you? What was it that set you on that path?
I mean, honestly, it was a day by day thing where I was grabbing hope and inspiration and motivation from whatever I could. Like I said, thank God that I got around the right men. I got around just a group of people that were trying to do the same thing that I was doing, and we started studying literature, and we started holding each other accountable. We started sharing our insane, crazy thoughts. We started, basically just being there for one another, because I would always try to face things in my life alone. I would always try to, like the self-will run riot. I thought that I was capable of doing this, even though that I was facing something that was much more powerful than me, talking about my addiction. I knew that I had to get with good people. I had to get a power greater than, I had to have this relationship with God. I had to do all these things that I was watching these other members do. And once I really started digging into that and, and applying like the willingness and the discipline that it takes to achieve these things, I started to see my life change. And when I say I started to see my life change, like I meant like, others started to trust me, or like, maybe I was being honest for the first time in a long time. These were the things that were happening in my life that, that I really couldn't notice at the moment. But like when you keep like just moving forward, like trying to live this benevolent lifestyle, it's just crazy to actually witness the transformation when you look back on your life and the steps that you took.
Yeah, sometimes it's only clear in hindsight. You've been
Yeah.
through the pain, and here you are moving forward. It doesn't sound like you had a point in your life where you knew what moving forward was until you got there. So
Yeah.
that was a foreign experience to you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the impression of getting here. During your struggle, I know you can't give an exact number. We don't need that. Did you lose a lot of friends and loved ones to addiction, Colicchie?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, going back to the early 2000s, people died back then. I mean, it's nothing like it is today with the with the fentanyl and care fentanyl and all that. But yes, it was pretty consistent. I look even at like my core group of, I don't want to say friends, but my core group of associates, like even in the early 2000s, and honestly, like out of all of them, I mean, out of the 10, 12 people, out of all of them, the only people that are clean are my sister and I. All of them are dead. You know what I mean? And or all of them have struggled in misery for years and years.
Is there a lot of parallel to your sister's story? Was she into addiction as well?
Yeah. I used with her for years, and she got clean before me, so she really was like that leading example, that positive role model. Because I would see other people that said they were clean, and I would see other people be like, I used to live this way, and now I live this way. but like I don't know you, so I don't know if I trust you. I don't know if I
Exactly.
believe you. But it was her. I knew how bad she was, and then I seen like once I actually seen her live a life where every single waking moment wasn't addressed towards like heroin and crack, like that was like the moment where it was like, okay, like maybe I can get to that position also.
Yeah, yeah. Is she an older sister or younger?
Yeah, she's older. She's like 4 years older, 3 years
Okay.
older.
Okay, enough to where you could witness her change,
Yeah.
and you had that trust in her, and you knew it was real or it wasn't. So that's powerful stuff. Let's move toward the recovery part of life. I have only been involved with addiction and recovery just short of 10 years. What kind of changes have you seen in recovery in the last 10 years or even 20 years? Where are we today that we were not before? I remember back when I first started with our Better Life, Brianna's Hope group, that the battle was a silent battle. You couldn't talk about it out loud. You whispered to somebody that you had an addiction issue. Your parents whispered to somebody else, I need help. My son, my daughter's having a struggle kind of thing. It wasn't something you said out loud. And here you are, you're doing music about it, and it's being heard, you and so many others. Besides that, what kind of differences do you see in the recovery effort?
I mean, yeah, just I mean, so much. You know, the fact that people are not ashamed nor, afraid to talk about. I mean, really, this deadly illness, just lets others know that that we don't have to suffer in silence. Because, like I said before, like I would always try to do this on my own. But I feel like when you're going up against something as strong as addiction, like I feel like you almost need like an army, and I feel like the more that it's talked about, then I don't know, the more resources that may be available, to
The
help others
more
still
soldiers that come
aware.
alongside who've struggled from that same silence. So I like your description of it taking an army, and indeed it does, in more ways than one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what what moment in your journey were you convinced I can do this? This can happen. I can get where I hope to be, where God wants me to be, where God created me to be. What was that? What was that moment like when hope started to take over doubt and fear?
Yeah. Um, I feel like, throughout my life, I've been in that position several times. Because, like I said, I've always been given this gift and I've always given it back. But, probably even just this last time, um, was even just my first day clean. Um, my first day clean, as far as, everything inside of me just screaming, to just do one more. But finding the strength through myself, through God, through prayer, and others around me, that I needed to do something so much different this time than I have the previous times, and I had to, basically, truly accept not only the disease of addiction, but where I was at in my life. And I had to accept, everything about my life up until that point, and really just start this brand new, fresh chapter. And, and even though I have these moments where I may tell myself these negative thoughts as far as you can't do it, like, those are just thoughts. My actions have always prevailed. I mean, always, and I would just push myself, and, despite how I feel. And, And the more that I did that, the more I had my own personal experience with overcoming turmoil or conquering adversity, whatever you want to say. And, that was just the beginning. And I would just get, these glimpses of hope in my life, but this hope, turns into this faith that for the majority does not waver. It turned into this unconditional surrender. I wasn't surrendering with these expectations that I'm only going to do the right thing if this, and that happens. But no matter what happens, God, I'm going to stay on this path, and I'm really going to give this my all every single day that I'm alive, despite how I feel. So I feel like once I actually got into that perspective of life, that it made things just a tad bit clearer.
Has it made things any easier? Is it still a battle? Is it still a conflict? Do you hear the drugs screaming to you, as you mentioned a minute ago, yet today?
No,
Do you hear your past telling you you aren't worthy?
I hear that I'm not worthy, but see those things used to get screamed into my ear before, where I couldn't ignore it. Now today it's a very quiet voice, and I really don't pay attention to it at all. As far as drugs, I lost the desire to use. Almost 8 years ago, because I have 8.5 years clean. So I struggled the first couple of months with wanting to get high, but I have not had the obsession to use, and which is an absolutely amazing thing, And as long as I keep, doing the work that I need to do to stay on top of my addiction. And when I say on top of my addiction, I don't really mean using, there's a difference, anyone could be abstinent, but for me, it's about being in recovery and living free, because even though I put down the drugs, I still have all these, these I could have bad behaviors or insane thinking, or just really just, everything that comes along with it, whether it's my character defects, my shortcomings, all of that. So I have to constantly stay in tune with all of that. So my end result is never the chemical.
It's a continuing process. It's not a destination, but a constant journey that can change from day to day due to stressors and everything else. All right. So, was there anything that you believe could have been said during your addiction that would have brought you to recovery more quickly? Or do you think the world was doing all it could do for you? It belonged to you, and it was your time to step up.
I don't. Like I said, my consequences, my end results was always spiritual in nature. I believe that that God's timing was perfect in every single aspect of my life. It doesn't matter whether it was addiction or recovery, because I heard it all. You know what I mean? I heard it all, and even knowing in my heart that I was on the verge of dying, it still was not enough for me to to want to quit. I've overdosed 6 times, and so close to death, dozens of times, but it just was never enough. And it didn't matter, somebody could scream anything to me till they were blue in the face, but really until I was ready, I wasn't ready. And I learned that today, and even working in treatment and trying to meet addicts where they're at, nobody could have ripped the needle out of my arm for me. I had to, it's not really a cop out, but I had to go through everything that I went through in order, to basically crash and burn my life for me to really get that pure gratitude, to want to save it. And I went through all of that so I could enjoy, all of this, but what is horrible is that so many people don't make it to this. They don't, really good friends. Really good friends that are no longer here, that would give anything just to have just one more shot at getting clean. And, I don't question, why I'm here and why I was given so many chances at this and when others weren't. But, you know, like I said, it's a gift, you know, so I can't neglect the gift that I was given. And by that, I'm grateful, you know, and my gratitude truly is in the way that I carry myself. My gratitude is in the things that I do. And
we're
I
going to talk
believe
about
I
that
stay
gift
grateful.
and how you express it here in just a moment or two. What is that one piece of advice that if someone struggling with addiction of any type would come to you, what is that one piece of advice you would want them to hear, that you would want to share?
I mean, I feel like there's so much, but just don't try to do it alone, and that you really are worthy of a life without drugs. Because that was always my biggest setback, thinking that I would just think about all the dirt that I did and all the incredible, just disgusting, bad decisions that I made, and that would kind of like push me into this corner of just like, I don't know, grime, and I would just think that I wasn't really, that life wasn't for me. And you know, it's going to be hard and it's going to be difficult and it's going to be probably the biggest challenge that you're ever going to face. But I promise you that the more that you would stick with it and the more that you stay in contact with people that are trying to do the exact same thing that you are, like we carry each other through this process. And it is, and it just, I would say just actually reaching out for help, but not only reaching out for the help, but actually accepting it and be willing to do, you know, what it takes, because it does get easier. You know what I mean? There's days that are hard, but as far as like life in general and all that, you know, it's gotten much easier than, you know, the days of, you know, shaking and withdrawal, thinking that I can't do this.
Don't let that shame keep you in the darkness.
Yeah.
Walk out and you lose it. You'll lose a piece of it with each step, and then keep that moving forward. I turned my hat around for this reason. I want to change gears a little bit.
Okay.
As I told you before we got on the air, I'm 73. There's a little difference in our ages. Here you are, a hip hop artist, and I personally remember the day Elvis Presley first came on stage, the day they shot the first television program of Elvis Presley, and the camera would not go below his waist because of his gyrations. And I remember sitting on the floor watching that, and I wish that's the worst thing we had on TV today was the moves of Elvis Presley. Well, he changed this world. I can relate to the 50s. I can relate to rock music. I'm learning to relate to hip hop. And that's why I took on this persona of Papa G, just to get a little more feel into it. Why did you choose the hip hop genre? Why is it so meaningful to you? Or maybe it chose you, but I want to hear from you.
It's funny you said that. I really do think that it chose me. And I didn't really have any goals. I didn't really, like when I first started getting clean at the age of 23, I was just big into writing. And like I said, being earlier in recovery and just in all that and talking about like writing about our feelings and all that. And I started putting these writings almost like as poetry. And then I started formulating songs. And I didn't have anybody showing me how to do anything. I wasn't influenced, I mean, really by anybody local. No one was holding my hand. I just started like making songs. And then, you know, when I first started writing, I didn't think like, oh, I'm going to record this or I'm going to rap this or anything. It was just strictly for fun. And then just almost very quickly, you know, probably a few months after I actually started writing, I did. And you have to understand, for me to even think to do something like that is absolutely insane because I've always been very shy. I mean, very, very shy. So even the fact that I was thought that I was willing to do that, still blows my mind. But that's what it was. It was really to get peace of mind. It was to get this freeing feeling. I was letting all my secrets go. I was talking about everything that I've ever done that I felt guilt and shame about. I was talking about embarrassing moments in my life. I was talking about, drug use, suicidal thoughts. I mean, everything. And by doing that, it just really freed me up, I guess you could say. And that is what kept me going in the beginning.
That was early in the game. That had to almost be a cultural shock to many. And probably for you to recognize and realize, whoa, this is touching some folks. This is making a difference. This is a way I can express myself and a way I can reach others who are where I've been.
Yeah.
And so that's, what would you say to somebody of my age category to help me relate even greater to the hip hop genre? It's a lot different than what has been, but I just feel like it's climbing, it's increasing, it's growing, it's becoming more meaningful to me. Yeah, let me hit you with that kind of question.
No, yeah, I mean, honestly, it all depends on the artist. Like if I was,
Sure.
I can't really think of anyone off the top of my head, but if I tried to give you some new artist that's quote unquote hot right now, I probably don't even like them. You know what I mean? So therefore, probably you wouldn't. But it's like, I couldn't even tell you how many messages I've gotten over the years, but a lot. And and I would read through them, and so often, someone would write me and just be like, look, I don't like rap music, but I like yours. You know what I mean? Or I made my mom or my dad listen to your music,
I
and
can
they
identify
were in
with all of
tears.
that. Yeah.
I've had grandparents write me before. I've had all types of different age groups reach out to me. And I think it's just because about the subject on the different songs that I have that I touch on stuff, like I said, I don't want to say like meaningful, but like the meaningful message that I have behind it. So
Absolutely.
I really think it depends on the artist. I think it depends on the context of each song, but
I think,
anybody can find
yeah,
love in something if it's
or
done.
encouragement. I think that's like anything as a child. When you're growing up, you don't like this food or that food. What's mom always say? Try it again. Try it again at the next meal. We get that taste, or we find that vegetable that we do like. It's
Yeah.
same with the music. You find that artist that you just suddenly connect with. Who is it of any genre of music, of any time, that if they passed, if they came back today and contacted you to open for them in a concert, who would that be? Yeah,
Oh, there would be so many.
just give us one or two.
Just as far as rap ones that have passed, I would say either just Tupac or Biggie. But I even think about like how you were talking about like classic rock and all that. That was my first love. Everything I went through, like my first loves were like Led Zeppelin and the Doors, you know what I mean? And then I moved on to like mid 90s like grunge Seattle music, whether it was Nirvana, Soundgarden, and then I kind of like fell into like the hip hop or whatever. But I would say probably Tupac or Biggie or
Cool.
somewhere along them lines. I would have to think, but
Yeah.
yeah.
We just had Mark Kendall on here from Great White, who
Okay.
was the lead guitarist for them, and he was an excellent interview. Told of his successes and struggles, and was just so comfortable with it. It was greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
And, and very informative, okay? And he talked to those stressors and strains that go with travel, and we see it as something glamorous. He saw it as something that was keeping him away from home and got him into some bad habits and bad elements and bad decisions. And he paid the price for it in many ways, as do so many. You were kind enough, upon our request, to send us a song, and that's what we want to use to close with here this afternoon.
Okay.
What is that song? And give us a little backstory on it, please.
The song is called Hope, and I remember writing this time getting clean. I had a little under a year clean, and I don't know, I was just in this stagnant time of my life where everything just felt monotonous, my daily life, my daily routine, whatever you want to say, and I remember we constructed this beat, and I remember just writing about just having the hope and the strength that it takes to go on. And it was a song that I wrote, for myself, to basically just remind myself that I need to keep going, regardless of how I'm feeling.
You need to keep going. We oftentimes hear say, stay in the battle. So we're looking at the same thing. Here's that song.
Leave tonight or even die this way. I'd always hope for better.
Colicchie.
But maybe together, you and me find it. I know things will get better. You'll find work and I'll get promoted and we'll move out of the shelter. Buy a bigger house and live in the suburbs.
Listen, I always say that I've been through worse, but there's been times in my life where that pain was a first. Yelling at the sky like God am I cursed? Like why am I alive? Why am I not under dirt? All days a maze as I try to find a purpose, as I constantly investigate but only scratch the surface. I'm done taking, now it's time to be a servant. Striving to be perfect, it has always left me nervous. I know my worth, I know what I deserve. My grip's gotta be firm when that tragedy does occur. And look, I finally got a taste of that thing that I've always wanted. I'm the living definition of turning nothing to something. That agony, I know it all too well. I only thought about myself all them times I fell. I've been cut, crushed, and abandoned, can't you tell? I've been beat, broken, battered, I've been dragged through hell.
You gotta make a decision. Leave tonight or even die this way. I'd always hope for better. Thought maybe together, you and me find it. I know things will get better. You'll find work and I'll get promoted. We'll move out of the shelter. Buy a bigger house and live in the suburbs.
It's hard to have hope in the midst of the struggle. It's like I'm seeing all the pieces, but they never fit the puzzle. I had to stay strong, had to fight, had to scuffle. This whole last year, I held on white-knuckled, and I gotta be the change that I wanna see in others. I'm embracing every storm, and look, I never need a cover. My life's a mess with this organized clutter. She's gotta be special if I'm saying that I love her. If I said it, then I meant it, never lying. I said I'd find happiness or I would die trying. I never pay attention to all the grief that I felt. I don't need your approval to be alright with myself. No concern and just learning from all my blunders. I don't need that validation like I did when I was younger. Thinking I can make it through this, determined that I can do it. Proving I'm heroic through expression in my music.
You gotta make a decision. Leave tonight or even die this way. I'd always hope for better. Thought maybe together, you and me find it. I know things will get better. You'll find work and I'll get promoted. We'll move out of the shelter. Buy a bigger house and live in the suburbs.
Let's go. Trust me when I say that I hit a lot of bottoms this last year. Each time was worse than the time before, but I just always held on. I remember when I didn't have $1 to my name, without a place to go, dripping wet, standing in the rain. They always do, but you gotta have faith, that's a fact, this is true. And this feeling that I got, I admit it's been a while. It's important that I go to any length to make her smile. You got a dream, gotta chase it till you catch it, and nothing is what it seems. Thinking about my past, all the dues that I paid, no matter how lonely I get, all I do is say, I always pray, I'm just fortunate to be alive and see another day. I can't call it quits cause it's getting rough. I'll do anything it takes before I'm ever giving up. So once again, you gotta have hope, hold on, pain ends.